to episode 26 of the Making It podcast. We are back again. It is Monday night, where I am. Monday morning for Dan. Monday lunchtime.
Monday 1 p.m. early afternoon.
1 p.m. So we are back. It's been contrasting weather on both sides, and actually Dan's got the better of it. It's like been 30 degrees weather or something in the UK. What's cracking
Oh,
off?
it's been so hot, and the sun's not even been out. It's just been humid. I mean, working in the kitchen the other day, it was like 34 degrees in the kitchen, and yeah, it's been boiling. Even today, like there's a bit of a breeze, but it's like 17 degrees. There's no sun out though, so you can't get a tan. Although earlier in the week there was a lot of sun out, especially when I went
out there
London.
with like your little mirror thing like that.
Catching the rays.
Yeah,
What has it been
absolutely.
like super cold where you are?
Mate, it's been freezing and it's been raining. We had one day last week which was just out of nowhere 30 degrees, like just super hot. And then the rest of the week was just rain. I was coming back from Woolies earlier and I was like, got some tunes on. I was walking, I was thinking, I've not been feeling so great. We'll kind of get onto it, but I've not been feeling so great lately, but I thought a nice walk will kind of fix it all up for me. Walking back from Woolies, mate, and this sad song comes on. The next thing you know, the heavens just open. And I'm just like, do you know what? Maybe today just isn't the day for me. And that's okay. Is that a thing that we not embrace, but is that a thing that we could kind of talk about actually, Dan? These kind of bad days, we kind of just have to accept them. Do you know what I mean? This whole week, bar Saturday was just like, because of football and things going really well, like one of our teams that I've not seen win yet and hasn't really won. They've only won one game before this whole season. They won 3-2. It was a mint game. I just felt like really like genuine pride. Like, when you feel like just happy for someone and their team. Shout out to German, by the way. Great guy. But other than that, I feel like most days have been bad days, and I'm trying to find ways to make it less bad and trying to make it happy, which sounds really depressing, by the way. It's not been like that bad. I'm really enjoying my time out here and it's great. It's just the lack of routine, as I said to you off the recording, like starting to hurt a little bit. We're going on holiday next week for 13 days or something like that. But I've kind of set myself the objective of, once I'm back, looking at getting a job. Obviously, it's my birthday as well, the week after we get back. So, bad days. What are your sort of thoughts? Because I know that you've had a bit of a lower sort of week this week, haven't you? So, something in the air, man.
I know what you mean. You can feel it. I don't know if any of the listeners are feeling it. Maybe some listeners have experienced some bad days recently, or just bad days in general. We've all faced them. I know from my perspective, I love every day to be sunshine and rainbows, and I love everyone to be happy, everyone to be getting along with each other, and things just are smooth sailing. But bad things happen in life, to the extreme extent of the fact wars go on in life, to the less extreme extent of you may have stubbed your toe on the wall. We have bad things that happen in life, and the key word for me is acceptance, embracing them and realizing that they do pass. But for me, it's through those moments of when, maybe you're on a bit of a bad streak, maybe some things have happened which have upset you, which have made you feel a bit lower, which have knocked your confidence a bit. It's when you're in those moments, which is the hardest bit, because I think a lot of us have the awareness that these things do pass and that they don't last forever. However, when you're actually in the situation, it's quite difficult to get through it. And I think, as much as I don't like to say it, sometimes it's like when you're in those moments, you have to put a bit of a brave face on, and you have to kind of get through it a little bit and push through the wave. Sometimes you can't ride it. And I think it's just embracing the fact that bad things do happen as much as we don't want them to, and realizing that they do pass. And in the moment, like we always say, what can I do now? How could I maybe lift my spirits a little bit? And something I did think about was, we've spoken about it on the podcast before, I've spoken about how I like to impact other people's days. I like to have a smile on my face, and we've talked about keep on smiling, have that good energy. But I've noticed sometimes it's actually quite nice when you realize you haven't got that energy yourself, because you can't have that energy yourself all the time. And then someone else has that energy. And it's like, you know what? It's like, it's almost like the roles are reversed a little bit today, but I quite like the fact that someone's given me that energy. And it just makes you realize, like, you never know what someone's going through, because we don't express everything to everyone all the time. Often it's that case of, how are you today? Well, I'm good. Most people just say they're good, but realistically, there's probably stuff kicking on, unless you're in a close friendship and you're going to really be honest. But I think accepting them and getting through them. But what would you say? Are there any specific examples of bad times which you've got through, and how did you get through them?
To be honest, like I would say that bad times this has been a challenge. This week has been a real challenge because I
It's
don't
almost
think
like
that
a transition for you, isn't it? You're going through a transition
yeah,
right now.
yeah. This week I'll be at the point I was at when we were leaving the last time we were here. So this is like one of 12 months done, which I don't like to think about it like that because I'm not trying to speed anything up because I'm enjoying this. And to be honest, the challenge does have to come with bits like this. If the challenge was me just being happy the whole time, then I might be doing something wrong. Even speaking to people that have lived here for 2.5 years, they're like, these are the challenges, and I felt like this before, and going out on Saturday night, my first kind of like social like pub night was amazing. Really good. I went with Matt and Mikey, just brilliant. And Matt works 7 days a week. He works so hard. And Mikey as well. He's working at his own firm and he also does football as well. And two really hardworking people. It was nice to, even though I wasn't having the greatest week, and even though Saturday was a good day, it was kind of nice to see other people like letting the hair down in a way, because they both work so much, and it was nice to just have, as much as we love football, just a night where we can be like, let's just enjoy what this is. And I think probably a part of me not feeling so great is probably the amount of beer that I've consumed this weekend. To be honest, like I've had a lot of drinks this weekend, but yeah, it's just a challenge. It's just a real challenge. I can't really describe why I don't feel too great. I could probably guess. I could probably say that it's to do with missing home a little bit. I've been thinking about home a lot. The weather is a massive thing for me. Obviously we've just been through in the UK a really long winter, and things were starting to get nice and warm, and then I've moved here and it's like it's cold. Do you know what I mean? It's just like God's sake. But I don't think I'm a seasonal depression kind of person, but I do think that the weather does have an effect, because those days where it's nice and sunny and you go and grab a cup of tea, or you have breakfast in the garden, or you just go out and sit in it, it feels good, and now it's raining and it doesn't feel so good. It's a bit like,
Well, you're out of your routine, and if we take it out of the whole year, right?
mm,
You're used to having your winter and then you have your summer, but you're actually gone from having your winter to then going into Australia and it's another winter. So right now you're going through changes. You're living a different life to what you've ever been used to. I think it's good to be aware that I think the idea of going to Australia is like the buzz of it. I'm moving out to Australia.
mm,
Everything's going to be amazing. I'm going to this promised land where I'm going to explore adventure. I'm going to have the best times ever. But there's also the other flip side of it where, like you say, it's the challenge. You're going solo to a place. Yes, a few people who you're staying with, and you're going to meet people and the people you coach with, but you're going through change. It's something you're not used to, and nothing is ever easy. But what you're doing, because it's such a big challenge, there will be a great reward. It's just right now you're going through that transition of being out there and realizing you're actually out there. And it's what do I do now? What do I do now in Australia to give myself that routine? And that's where we want to talk to the listeners today about routine and employment and jobs and what they can do for you. You mentioned about maybe getting a job after you come back from holiday. So how important is a routine And why do you think a job ties into that?
Because it gives you structure. Structure is everything. And again, I'm going to mention football. We always talk about football, and you always talk about structure. Well, I don't think that football is much different to life in that respect. I think that in order to be a well-rounded person, to be organised, um, to sort of give yourself an idea of what to expect, coming up, you need structure. And at the moment, my life has no structure. And I enjoy the not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow thing, which is great. And I have said that for a while. But there's also the not knowing what's going to happen next week and maybe anticipating that it's similar to this one. Because this week was fun in respect to the football and all the other bits. And actually, I should mention that this Saturday was also an incredibly scary day because I really realised how valuable like what we've got now is. We were driving on the motorway, or the freeway as they call it here, and a guy was in the outside lane and he just cut in. He'd just knocked our wheel, so luckily not our tyre, not too bad. But we swerved. The guy nearly took us off the road. Like we would have just, he would have just killed us all. Like he would have ruined us. We would have been really badly injured if not. But stuff like that really opens your eyes to what you should be grateful for. And it did get me kind of thinking about what do I actually want to do with this year out, because the football stuff's going really great. Potentially, if I take a team, there's an incentive to stay around this area of Gold Coast next year, for the earlier stages and maybe not travel quite as much. So maybe do all my traveling within the 3 months of the off season, which is possible. You could do a couple of weeks in each city and kind of bounce around and then come back and get straight into it. Or do I kind of scrap that and just keep traveling and doing what I do? There's a lot of things to kind of consider, but having the structure, having the routine, and just being able to focus on stuff instead of everything being a question. Do you know what I mean? Like when you feel like you're questioning stuff all the time because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what tomorrow you're doing, or like there's not a lot of certainty in your mind. I feel like you end up questioning everything and it all just becomes a little bit confusing.
I know what you mean. It's that sense of being able to predict what you're doing. We all like it. It's comfortable. But what you're doing right now is very far from that. You can't really predict what's going to happen because you've never been there before. It's literally a whole different universe in some way. Like Australia's different to the UK in many aspects. And I'm very interested to know in a few months' time where you'll be at and how you'd look at this period of time. Because it's all hindsight is just such an interesting word because, sometimes when you look back on a period of time and you're like, wow, like that time was actually really good. Like maybe right now, obviously it's difficult because you don't know what's going to happen and it's getting you a bit low and, it's tough. But maybe one time you'll look back and think at the same time, it was quite exciting. And I think I heard something the other day. It was on some podcast somewhere, but it was about this guy said to his wife when they used to live in New York, it was like, New York was great. We used to go for a coffee and go for a walk. And, we had that time to kind of chill and things weren't too stressed. And I think his wife turned around to him and said, that just wasn't the case at all. You were really grumpy and, we were bickering a lot and it wasn't like that. So it's almost like that story made me think sometimes in the times we're living, we don't quite appreciate what's going on. But then in the future, we look back and think it was really good because compared to that moment now, it's very different. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but maybe what I'm trying to say is as a young person, all these trials and tribulations we have that bring us down, which get us back up, the low moments we have, maybe when we're older, we're going to look back and go, yes, those low moments were difficult. Yes, those trials and tribulations were a challenge. But God, that time in my life was exciting. And that stuff was actually really good fun. And that's where we talk about acceptance and embracing those low moments because life is very up and down. Emotions rise and fall. We speak about waves, they go up and down. things are fluid in life. Nothing's ever the same, otherwise life would be, pretty boring.
Mm.
And, it's interesting to kind of have that awareness, but sometimes take in the moment and don't look too far ahead, as hard as it is, because what's going on right now may be pretty awesome. It's just hard to realize in the moment. And that's why looking back on things is so interesting. And maybe, I'll ask you a question now, and it might be quite hard to think on the spot, but can you ever think of a time in your life where you did go through a transition and it was tough in the period of time, but then you got through it and you realize how great it was? I think you moved school.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be one. But is there a moment where you did go through a transition, not quite the same as this, but it was a transition, and you came out of it all right?
Probably, yeah, that's a good idea. You've given there with moving school because again, I was at Chilwell for 3 years and then decided to go and do engineering at Newast, and I felt like it was going there and not knowing what the hell's going to happen. It's terrifying. What you're like 14 or whatever, and it's just like I have no idea. On the first day there, I met a friend who would then be my friend throughout secondary school. I don't speak to them anymore, but literally before school even started, just on the tram, we met them. And then we met a few other people that had moved over from the same school, people that we knew. And then before you know it, there's just like a big group of us. And kind of as the years have gone on, the group's got smaller and smaller. It's moved left, it's moved right, it's moved to loads of different people. But from day one, I knew it was all going to be all right, just because I had that early reassurance. I would say football as well, like when we were younger. My dad put me in Dunkirk Football Club for like the first couple of years. And I was actually playing with, obviously, Kian Willows. He's
Yeah.
professional at Forest now, so shout out to him. That's a podcast I think that we could definitely look at doing. That's pretty cool. And I was at Dunkirk, and the difference in like levels of players was crazy because they
I
were
mean,
all
that's where
mint.
Brennan Johnson started, wasn't it?
It was where Brennan Johnson started. Yeah, they were all mint, and I was terrible. I think I was putting goal on my first game. We lost by quite a lot, and I was playing down a year because of how crap I was. And then I went to Attenborough, and it still wasn't that great. But then over time, I kind of transitioned to it actually being quite fun, even though we were never really great. It was fun, and that kind of challenging period, which lasted a while, was really fun in the end. But definitely the moving schools, that whole cultural shift, having to make new friends, and I suppose almost moving out here is almost like that, in a sort of more macro way. You've just got to try and make new friends and explore something different. The other challenge for me is that where I live here, it's beautiful, it's quiet, the beach is next to us, it is so lovely. But because it's so secluded, you do sometimes, because I don't drive as well, and driving is also expensive here, you do sometimes feel like you're a bit closed in, which is obviously not the desired feeling. So it's a bit tougher to solve the feeling of loneliness at times, and just wanting to go out for a beer with friends. You can't just do that because like the nearest place to me, if I wanted to walk, would be an hour and 10. If I got the bike, it'd be like half an hour, and it's just like it's a different challenge, and it's probably the biggest one.
I want to bring up the question of the week for this week.
Mm.
I put on the Instagram and the TikTok, what was your first job? And jobs are interesting because over life, we have quite a few of them. We have different jobs. We have our first, we have our last, we have the ones in between. We have the one which lasts forever because we realize it's a strong part of us. We have the ones which didn't quite work. And it's almost like what we're talking about, that up and down. Jobs are quite up and down.
Mm.
My first job was working in a pizza shop in Beeson, Milano Express. And
Milano's, yeah.
I remember, funny enough, my trial shift, it was like me versus Aaron, because he had another trial shift and they're working out which worker to get. I just got ahead of Aaron in the end, but Aaron did eventually end up working there for a bit anyway. But I just remember how that was, and I was just in the back, just scrubbing pots for 4 hours in this small little corner. But it makes you realize, like, I think jobs are so important because, first of all, you have to work alongside people who you've never met before. You have to build relationships. You have to be bold. You have to be brave. You have to have the courage to ask questions and to learn more, because it's very easy to hide away in a job. And,
Mm.
people end up losing jobs because they didn't challenge themselves enough. They didn't put themselves in those uncomfortable positions enough. But I think my first job was important because it taught me that you can do a great job, but there's always still more to do. And shout out to the boss there, but he always demanded hard work from us, and we did, and we worked hard. You couldn't particularly mess about too much, and you got the job done, and you made sure it was to a good standard. He always said there's good and there's excellent. He wants things to be on the excellent side of things, even if it's just cleaning like an oven glove. So I feel like my first job for me, it's that harsh reality, isn't it? Of you can not everything's going to be all nicey nice all the time. There's those stress of a job, there's the demands of a job, and it's getting through that. And that definitely set me up well for then working in the Vic, where I realized, you've got to do a good job. That's Yes, we're all getting along and we're having fun, but it all helps if everyone's doing a good job. It makes things run a lot easier. But I think about the Vic and I think about some of the people there. I don't know how many times we're going to end up mentioning, but our friendship came through the Vic, and I've got many friendships that have come through the Vic. I love a night out with people from the Vic. It's a great place. It's the environment of it's great, and the relationships you can build from the Vic and jobs are very important. How have your experiences of jobs been? I know obviously the Vic has been a big one for you because that's almost like your upbringing, but you've had other jobs as well. So what was your first job, and how important are jobs for you?
My first job was delivering meat for my granddad's butcher's shop when I was like,
Really, I didn't know this.
yeah, when I was like 13. It would be a couple of days a week, not for very long, maybe a few hours. But we'd go to loads of different pubs. It was all pubs pretty much around Nottingham. You go somewhere, you go to like Arnold. Sometimes you go to town like Sherwood, Beeston. So I have to apologize. I've got the dog next to me and it's dreaming, so it keeps growling. Um, but yeah, we used to just go and deliver meat, and you'd have like this big, like, I don't know, you'd have this big rack of meat like over your shoulder, and you'd have to go and give it to the bloke behind the bar and whatever else. And I kind of got to know a lot of the people. And then my granddad retired, and obviously sold the shop and stuff, so I didn't really get to work there. But then I worked at the corner shop near my house. I used to
Oh
earn
yeah,
50
forget your
quid a
corner
week.
shop gig.
Yeah, yeah, it was all right actually. To be fair, it was 50 quid a week, and then I used to work at the pub, so it was shop on a Saturday, pub on a Sunday, and obviously, yeah, the pub came into it when I was like 16. So, um, yeah, my first jobs, and do you know what? I've always enjoyed those jobs, even though of course I love the pub because it's all very kind of intimate, and everyone's close together, working and talking, and it's great. But I always loved those jobs where you'd be in a van with someone, like, when you go to gardening, or because you jump out, you do an hour and a half at someone's garden, you get back in the van, and there's another topic that you're talking about. You're talking about something new. Do you know what I mean? You talk about that garden, you talk about the customer, you talk about something, whatever it is.
It's like a mini adventure, isn't it? I
Yeah,
realized I missed out on my hot tub job where I was cleaning hot tubs, and I've shouted at him on the podcast before, but it was like John was like a mentor to me, my hot tub boss, and still now I'll see him and I'll do the odd job for him, or he lives on my road, so we'll have a chat, we'll have a beer sometimes. But you get mentors through jobs as well. But I know exactly what you mean. That those jobs where it's just you and someone else in the van, and you go to different places, you're meeting different characters. You learn a lot from that, don't you?
yeah, and it's like the almost, you've got a companion at work, and it's just you two, you know. It's what I always loved about going gardening. It's something that I am definitely missing a lot, is that you kind of knew, oh, I've got Dan on a Wednesday, I've got Craig on a Thursday. We kind of know what we both like, music wise, food wise, customers wise, like preference of what drink you have at work. I don't know, just random stuff. But you built really good relationships with people I would have never met. I would have never met any of these guys had I not been working there. The chances are so low. I know it's a small world, but the chances are so low. So work just introduces you to the different perspectives, like something that we wanted to start this podcast about because it's about different perspectives. And in a way, even though it isn't a job, we are in that situation, except we're just not driving a van to places. You know what I mean? It's just two mates talking about stuff.
This is our van, the Making It van.
This is the
Maybe we'll have
Making It
that one
van.
day.
Yeah. So we've had, what have we had? We've had the boat, we've had the onion, and now we've
The
got the
van.
van. But it is so important because the van kind of represents not really necessarily a moving vehicle that you put stuff in the back of.
That's what it is.
Which is what it is. But the van in this scenario actually represents a sort of mini world inside your big world that you live in. You know, this kind of world where you think you're so big and important, and then you just go into this little van and it's just you and them. Like, it is so important.
Tell you what, mate, I tell you what, that's actually really interesting you brought that up, because when I went for a walk with Ollie and Aaron, we're on this tight road and this van comes out of nowhere and it said Australia on it. And it had loads of stickers on it, and it had an Australian license, everything. And they clearly come from. Can you drive from Australia? Can you get on a
No,
boat?
they've imported it, haven't they?
Okay, they've imported it, but they've clearly come from Australia and they've just been on this road trip somewhere. We obviously didn't get the chance to speak to them because they drove past. But that just represents what you said. Your van's your small mini world in this big world, and you can do so much in a van. You can explore everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's about the people you explore it with, you know, and we always say the people make the moment. Like, that's the kind of like big thing, and you kind of forget how much you need people. I'm definitely in one of those weeks where I'll be like, if I could just get a quick plane home, say hello to everyone, have a quick beer, and then come home, I'll be like, I'm all good now. I'm all right. Do you know what I mean? I'm all right. But I'm also craving. I'm really, really craving just something a little bit different to just come my way. Something a bit new, a new challenge in sport or a new challenge in just anything, just something to be thrown at me and just kind of get into it. And also a little bit of sunshine, to be honest. And maybe a van. Maybe a van. I might just get a
Maybe
van
that's
and
the answer. This is a sign.
yeah, I can't drive, but I'll just like, I don't know, I'll make the van pedal powered and I'll become like one of these Byron Bay hippies, mate.
A
Proper
little
like,
tuk-tuk.
hey, yeah. I saw some guy on a night out in the bar on Saturday, and he had no hair here, but all here he had dreadlocks. Like, it was
Like
such
a
a mad
monk.
thing that he was proper just going for it. He was just going for it, and I thought, you know what? I wish that I could just put all my crap worrying aside and just be as like happy in the moment as that guy, because he's just so cool.
I want
Do
to
you think
shout
people?
out. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think people maybe worry about themselves a little bit too much and kind of forget to just live in the moment like people like him?
Oh, mate, 100%. The amount of conversations I've had with people where they're worried about what someone's thinking of them, whether that's in an interaction or how they look, or just doing something they want to do in their life. You know, we all experience like what other people are going to think, and you get out of it from doing more things by doing more things where you have that worry, that fear of judgment. The more you get used to that feeling, and the feeling never goes away, but you're just better at dealing with it. Mate, it's such a big thing. And sometimes it is nice just to let go. Because realistically, man, no one really cares, you know? How you
Mm,
look, how you are, what you're doing. You know, as long as it's not negatively affecting everyone and you're not poisoning people with the way you are. Like, if it's what you want to do and you feel good about it, then go for it. And being yourself is interesting. And I want to shout out something my dad told me this week, and I've always kind of thought about this, but I've never been able to put it to words. And he said to me, "You can't always see other people like you." And I
mm,
always feel like I've experienced it sometimes in life where, you know, sometimes I feel like I may be giving out a lot to other people. I may give a lot of people time. I may give a lot of people respect. I may be kind to other people, but sometimes you don't always get it back. Some friendships you do, and they're your great friendships, and they're the friendships which last forever, building on relationships from last week. But that's a big thing with kindness as well. Being kind, you can't expect the same thing back. Being
Yeah.
kindness is a standard. It's not an expectation to then get something back from it. People talk about karma, and yes, in the end, good things come to those who give out good. But if you're kind to someone, you can't do it with an expectation of getting something in return. And I think that phrase, you can't see others like you, because we're all different, and you can't expect your friends to be like you. You can't expect, your partner to be like you. Someone was speaking to me about the other day of like, oh, well, I want my partner to be the same as me. But that is just not the case. We're all different, and you've got to accept people's differences. We all have different perspectives, and that's something we've always spoke about on this podcast. Two friends, two perspectives. But it's accepting that not everyone is going to be like you, and you can't always expect everything from others.
Also, isn't the beauty of a relationship? Oh my God, we finally got one on the podcast.
And not
That is
everyone has a
big
sneeze
moment.
like that.
Wow. Please put that on TikTok and tell us what you think of that sneeze. Isn't it phenomenal, right? That's proper threw me off now. Oh God, it's so funny when you hear it at work. It is so funny.
It was happening a couple of times today.
Like
Jim
that.
was like, "That's always going to get me."
Oh God. I don't even know what I was saying now.
I think we touched on a lot on that podcast, to be honest.
We did. I think, like, when it comes to other people, that was it. Relationships. I think that the joy of a relationship should come from partly the difference, because then you get to understand someone's perspective, and you get to understand why opposites attract, like magnets, because it's so important. And that doesn't mean like, just because I'm a Forest fan, I'm going to date a Derby fan. I'm not saying that, because that won't happen. Do you know what I mean? But like, but the opposites attract, and things that you like and that you enjoy, Scarlett might not, but the things that she enjoys, you might not. But you kind of both do it, and you reach a compromise, and eventually, at some point, you go, I actually enjoy doing this thing because they enjoy it, and you enjoy things for other people a little bit more, and then it opens your eyes up to what a relationship really is, even in a friend aspect or in a more serious relationship aspect. So, but yeah, I think we have covered a lot, including your sneeze, which I'm particularly happy with, because I didn't think we'd get to have a Daniel sneeze on the podcast. So if you've enjoyed listening to Daniel sneeze, then watch the YouTube one, because you can see his face while he does it, and it's well funny.
I want to I just want to mention that there will be a guest episode coming out on Saturday.
Yes.
So tune in for that, because it's a good episode and it's an interesting character who is doing something interesting with his life. So definitely tune into that. Shout out to all the socials as well. Check out our videos on Insta and TikTok. And if you ever want to email us a funny story, your first job, if you ever want to answer the question of the week or say anything to us, it's makingitpoddy@gmail.com.
Get in contact, people. And for my TikTok people, please clip up that sneeze, mate, because that is so funny. I really want to have that on the TikTok. Let me know what you think about his sneeze, because it's well funny. And let me know what you think as well of episode 26, back every Tuesday at 10 in the morning. See you soon. Have a good week.
Take care, everybody.
Feel so right.